Okay.
System, so it's not working normally. Let me fix it. Okay. Well, I think we're moving on to where we need Emily now. So Emily, can you hear us? Fixing my sound right now.
I can hear you, but there's an echo.
Yeah.
You should be fine.
Okay, Emily, would you like to give us the Board of Supervisors report?
Oh, sure. Let me turn on my camera. Hey there. So there isn't much to report, and I'm not sure what Tony's going to go over, but we did want to say Supervisor Frericks is really excited that Anna Sutton has been hired as Assistant Director for HHSA. I had previously worked with her actually in public health, so I'm personally excited to have her back. And I think that was really about it for Supervisor Frericks updates. Does anybody have anything that you'd like me to pass along to him?
Oh my God, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to the time set agenda, which we're way ahead of time now. We have Teresa Comstock here from Cal VHBC to give sort of a high level talk about how our meetings lead to the annual report and also about the Brown Act. Teresa?
Hi, good to be with you. Let me get the video on. Here we go. All right. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Teresa Comstock. I'm Executive Director with California Association of Local Behavioral Health Boards and Commissions. I always appreciate the opportunity to talk to one of the local boards, and the questions in particular that I was asked to cover was how to just kind of a broad overview of how to do an annual report, and then also a high level on the Brown Act, especially the changes. But I know there probably are a lot of members also that just want to know what is the Brown Act. So I'll start with the annual report because that's a lot easier. The Brown Act is very complicated now. But just basically, annual report is one of your duties that are in Welfare and Institution Code for California for local behavioral health boards. Your duties mostly revolve around advising the Board of Supervisors and the Behavioral Health Director. And so once a year, you should have an annual report that goes to the Board of Supervisors. and it should be on the needs and performance of the behavioral health system. So those are the focuses that you should have. And that can help guide you through the year if you're thinking about that. And I had asked for a copy of your duties to be provided to you. Within those duties, advisory work is really prime. And so finding ways to work together as a board in order to make recommendations is key to that. So a lot of boards and commissions struggle with just doing that. They need to have it modeled for them. And once they start making recommendations, then they can put those into their annual reports. So finding speakers that can speak to topics of interest to you. Of course, the staff's always going to be providing information to you. But if you want to dig deeper and learn more about an issue or a gap, then we have some tools that we suggest on our website, like having ad hoc committees do research together, or doing site visits, lots of different ways to work together. And then oftentimes it's the executive committee, one or two people, often one person that puts together that annual report. Sometimes staff will help with it. But that's kind of a broad overview. Does anybody have any questions on the annual report? All right. And I should say it's a good time to review, make sure that you are doing what you should be doing in terms of the Welfare and Institution Code, that you're doing all your duties, and also that your membership is within the requirements of state law. And then it's also a good time to acknowledge all the different speakers and staff and contractors and your own members to acknowledge all of them and thank them. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and pull up a presentation on the Brown Act. All right, the topics that we're going to cover are just the basics, what are open and public meetings, who is covered and not covered by the Brown Act, handling documents, posting meeting agendas, public participation requirements, teleconferencing, and voting. The new areas mostly are in regard to teleconferencing that state law has just been updated. And so we'll talk about teleconference and alternative teleconference rules, and then frequently asked questions. And you're welcome to stop me as we go along if you want to. There's a chat. Oh, okay, here we go. Next slide. All right, so meetings of public bodies must be open in public. Action taken in violation of open meeting laws may be voided. And a meeting, it's not just having a group in a room. A meeting is any gathering of a majority of the members of a covered board, so of your behavioral health board. That's called a quorum. So a majority is half plus one of current membership. So you want to avoid any contact that would result in a quorum outside of a posted meeting. And so that can be emails, text calls, phone calls, any kind of contact outside that's discussing the subject matter. So you can get together, you could be together as long as you're not discussing the subject matter. But because you are on this behavioral health board, that's probably what you will discuss when you get together. And then this slide just talks about who is covered by the Brown Act. So in California law, they consider you a legislative body because you are a local board and you are an advisory body. And then any committees that are called standing committees that you create are covered by the Brown Act as well. So a standing committee is a committee that meets on an ongoing basis. And you can you shouldn't have more than a quorum of your board on the standing committee, but the standing committees also they have to abide by all of the Brown Act rules. So you can't have a quorum of just the standing committee itself outside of a posted meeting. So if you have a standing committee that has 5 members, then 3 members would be a quorum. And then who is not covered by the Brown Act? What we call ad hoc advisory committees, those are just work groups. That could be, say you just have a couple members working together on an annual report. That could be called an ad hoc committee. They should be short-term and time-limited. And then most nonprofit organizations are not covered, and state agencies, they are covered by a different Open Meeting Act called the Bagley-Keene. In terms of documents, you should treat documents shared with a majority of your board as public. And so the staff should post it either on the website or have it available at the meeting if possible, or make it available to the public if they want to come into the office. Posting should be on the agency website and at the physical meeting location, freely accessible to members of the public. And it should be posted 72 hours in advance of your regular meetings, 24 hours in advance of special meetings. Agendas must include the opportunity for the public to address the board or commission on any item of interest. And items must be on the posted agenda. You should take no action on anything that's not appearing on the agenda. So you shouldn't be talking back to the public when they're doing public comment on items not on the agenda. You should be just listening to it and thinking, okay, maybe at a future meeting, this is something that we can bring up, but it must be on the agenda if you as members discuss it.
Teresa, could I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
Can we go back to the slide about the documents? The way this board works is that they have staff support from the Health and Human Services Agency, who sometimes receives correspondence intended for the board. And we've had a couple of situations where we've received correspondence that had material of like a sensitive nature, right? And information that we would otherwise consider to be confidential information that was contained as part of the document. And what advice can you give us about that, right? In those situations, we did our best to kind of redact any sensitive information before making it public, but are there any rules or guidance around that?
Right. Yeah, I would do just that, redact information that you don't want to have public. And so your board members won't see that information either when it's shared with them. If it's possible to just share, with the chair instead of, it depending on how they've asked for this to be shared instead of sharing it with the full board. But yeah.
So it sounds like you're saying it's not a problem if they're only sharing it with the executive board, that they wouldn't necessarily have to share anything with the public if they're only sharing it with the 4 of us.
You are a standing committee, so if they share it with you, then it needs to be public.
Oh, did we have to be set up as a standing committee? Because that's not the way we did it. We're just the officers.
If you have regular meetings, then do you have regular meetings?
We have agenda meetings to set the agenda.
Yeah, that's called as it's a standing committee. You're meeting regularly to set the agenda.
I guess the
Um,
question I'm asking is, should the Health and Human Services Agency be, I mean, I'm not trying to think the right way to say it, right?
It's a member of the public,
Could
right?
we be screening this communication that's intended for the board, right? When we know
Right.
that it contains potentially confidential information or information that we don't probably believe should be, like, it contains
Right.
a name or something like that, right?
Are you, when you say, Tony, when you say someone's name, because, you know, in terms of, is it confidential to the person sending it, like her HIPAA or his HIPAA rights, or is it other information? Because like my feeling is if it's that person's rights that they can waive them. And if we're clear about what it means to send in a letter to this body, they've waived them. What shouldn't happen is, you know, you guys should not be in a position where you're deciding what should be shared with us and what shouldn't be shared with us. I mean, maybe that's something that could be, if you did want to do that, and Teresa, your feedback would be great here. Maybe it's something you do with the chair, in conjunction with the chair, you know, confidentially, you know. But I don't think you, as staff to this body, should be making a decision about what we get and what we don't get.
Are there cases where a staff person, for legal or ethical reasons, would have to be redacted? That, I mean, like, there's a complaint that a staff member.
We had a particular situation that came up within the last year where we were uncomfortable with sharing it. We shared the information with the board, but then when you guys published it as part of the packet, it was redacted.
But when you
Your
say
information-
uncomfortable, were you just uncomfortable, or was it that would have been an ethical violation?
I can't remember the exact circumstances, but from what I recall, I think it was more of an ethical concern that we had. You know, I mean, I think part of it is, do people know when they submit correspondence?
Yeah.
You know, like when they send an email that it's going to become public, right? So that there's that part of it,
Yeah.
right? And then,
We know a situation of a parent writes to the board about a child who's a consumer, and that child hasn't waived any of their
or a
Loved
parent
one.
writes a parent, yeah, right, exactly. You know, or even the person self-identifies, but it's kind of clear from the intent of the correspondence that they want something to be done about it, but not necessarily should it be public, right? And so I think that part of this, I think maybe with going back, Teresa, like, is there a requirement to make it public? Like, is it an absolute requirement, or is it okay for us to reach out to that person and say, hey, you know, this is going to become public, or this is going to become public if it's a formal
Right.
application to the board, right?
Right. Yeah, it's great if staff can reach out and let them know that. And, you know, you have the option if you think that there's information in there that should not be public information, just redact the names. You know, the board doesn't need to know the individual's names. They just want to know what the issue is.
Well, so in this case, it was, as I recall, a complaint against your staff.
That's correct.
So what I want to be careful about is you guys should not be making those, staff should not be making those decisions independently, especially when it's a complaint against your staff. I really feel strongly that the chair or vice chair should be part of that discussion. You guys should not, anything that comes to this board, at least the chair should see and be involved in that decision with you guys to have a discussion of what should and shouldn't be redacted.
I guess my question though is, are there rules surrounding complaints where if there's a complaint against a staff member, do they have certain rights to us not sharing that information. I just
I
don't.
think, yes, part of the Brown Act is there's actually some wording that speaks to that, that the public has the right to criticize you at the board as well as the agency. So we don't want to prohibit that. We want to really encourage the public comment, but sometimes people in the public, they don't realize that their names or their family members' names will become public. So, we want to make sure people don't inadvertently do something like that. That's I think what everybody wants to avoid.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jonathan, reminding me about what the particular issue was. So there was a specific situation we had where we had an individual making complaint about specific staff members who were named in this complaint, and the nature of the allegation was also, I don't know what I can say about this other than just to say, like, we had some concerns about the person making the complaint as well, right? And so would it be a requirement, like if we receive a complaint that names staff members to publicly post the complaint that names the staff member?
So I would say redact the staff member's name. And there's a slide I'll get to in a little bit that speaks to closed meetings. If it's a personnel issue, you can have a closed meeting. That's usually not, the role of the board to get that into the weeds in terms of staff. But, if there's something that needs to be done, that they need to be able to discuss, they can do that in a closed meeting. But yeah, let me bring up that slide so we can look at that specifically, because that question hasn't come up before. I'm going to come back to that because it's
Yeah.
several slides off. So let me keep going here.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mean to derail
Yeah,
your.
that's okay. Let's see. We'll move past agendas. I think we got through most of that. And then public participation. Public comment can be before or during agenda items. And it should not be after. For sure, not after the agenda items. Recording is allowed, and individuals can be removed from meetings if they are disruptive. And there was already some text in the law before the new law was introduced, but they added more to that in terms of how to deal with disruptive behavior. Some of our boards and commissions have had some experience with that. Sign in or identification is not required. And translation, anybody that needs translation can have twice as much time for public comment. Let's see, teleconferencing agendas should be posted at all teleconference locations. So this is just like standard teleconferencing. This is the way teleconferencing was done before the pandemic. If you wanted to be connecting through a teleconference as a member, you would have your address wherever you're teleconferencing from. It would be posted on the agenda, and you would have to make it available to people if they wanted to come in person to your location. Even if you're in Hawaii, you would put it up, you would post your agenda outside your room in Hawaii, and the public could come in. So it's supposed to still be accessible wherever you're teleconferencing from. A lot of boards and commissions, they're in large counties, large land masses, so they'll have a couple of teleconferencing locations that are open to the public. That's usually how it's used. And then members with disabilities, temporary or permanent, may participate in any of the meetings remotely. And that can be treated as if they're in person. And that is important with some of the new allowances that that they're treated that way. Voting, only public votes, no secret ballots. Keep a public record of all the member votes and abstentions. So the minutes should reflect what each of your members have voted or if they've abstained. And then teleconference votes must be by roll call. All right, this new section, alternative teleconference rules for eligible subsidiary bodies, just took effect January 1st. And it requires, or it allows members of your board to participate remotely without disclosing a physical location and without welcoming the public or posting an agenda at the location. So it requires authorization every 6 months by the governing body. So that's your board of supervisors. And then that would be followed by your own behavioral health board approval. So you would vote to approve it yourselves after they authorize it. There needs still to be one physical meeting location. That's for members who are not participating remotely and for the public. One staff member at least should be at that location. And that's a staff member of the Behavioral Health Agency or of the Board of Supervisors. And then public participation must be facilitated, allowing the public to remotely hear and visually observe the meeting. And disclosure of individuals present who are 18 years of age or older. For example, I have somebody in the room with me that's starting dinner and he's over 18. So my husband is in the room. Members must appear on camera with exceptions due to disability or technical difficulties. So by turning off your camera, sometimes you have better connectivity. And then we have an asterisk next to number 7. The Board of Supervisors have more requirements than regular members. So if it's an elected official, they actually must abide by a higher level of meeting rules. And so they're back to needing to post and allow access to the public to the location that they're at. And then in a state of emergency, there are alternative teleconference rules as well. We still have something called just cause allowances. Some of you might have been familiar with this before. They've actually combined what they called just cause allowances previously with what they called emergency circumstances. So it's all called just cause now. So a member can participate by teleconference by providing, without providing a physical meeting address, if there is a quorum at a singular physical location. And then if a member request is made, and so that could be at the earliest opportunity, even at the start of the meeting. So they can just request it, and that should include just kind of a general description of the circumstances. And then they should be participating both by audio and visual. And then meeting minutes must include the reason. And then there's limits to remote participation, depending on how many meetings you have each month. I think for most boards and commissions, there would be a limit to 2 meetings per year where somebody could do a just cause allowance.
Hey, Teresa, why is this necessary with that prior slide with the new law, change in the law?
Yeah.
Why is this old
It's,
part of
I
what-
think a lot of counties, well, I don't know if it's a lot, but some of the counties will not enact the previous. So with the eligible subsidiary bodies, alternative teleconference rules, there may be counties where the Board of Supervisors will not authorize this. And so that's an option for them outside of getting authorization, that board members could still come remotely.
And I don't think we've asked for that, have we, from our board of supervisors?
No, no. So what you're saying is that, I mean, tonight we've got Emily here representing a supervisor, but if the supervisor himself were here, he would have to follow the stricter rules. Correct?
That's right. Yeah, the Board of Supervisor member, yeah, item 7 on this slide speaks to that. They would still have to follow the standard teleconference rules. They couldn't attend remotely without posting their address and welcoming the public.
But
So
is that because they have a higher requirement because they're on the board, and or
right.
because we have not yet gotten approval from the board?
They-
Right, so let's
Oh,
change.
no. So yeah, those are two different items. Yeah.
Yeah.
So authorization from the Board of Supervisors happens during their own Board of Supervisors meeting, where they will decide which of their advisory boards may have this ability to meet.
Yeah.
And
So,
so
like,
they have
right.
to vote on it.
So if I were home right now, because we haven't asked for that, if I were home right now, I would have to have just cause because we have not got
Right.
yet approval from the board of supervisors.
Exactly. Right. And then remember, you also have, after they authorize it, then your board has to authorize it. And we know some boards, they have leadership that doesn't want people coming by teleconference. They really value that in person as much as, people possibly can come in person. That's what they want.
Can I just clarify? I know it was mentioned, but since I'm representing Supervisor Frericks, but I am not an elected official, is it okay for me to attend remotely without posting?
Right, yeah. And I mean, it's important. Sometimes we get people that are representing the Board of Supervisor member, but they haven't been appointed onto the board. So I just want to make sure you know that too. You should be appointed onto the board in order to be, what's called a member.
To be able to be in his place?
Not in his place. You can't replace the Board of Supervisor member, but you can be a member of the board.
So what exactly does that mean? I mean, I guess I don't completely understand what the place of the Board of Supervisor member is then.
The
What-
law says that each board, there is a requirement that a Board of Supervisor member serve on the board. There's not a requirement that they show up. So sometimes we get staff instead. But there's a requirement that they are a board member. So they're listed in the membership. And so
And
they're
they-
part of what the requirement is for a quorum. They're added to that membership number. So if you as a staff member are there to represent the official and you want to vote, then you need to be appointed as a member.
But my understanding is that there are some boards, local behavioral health boards, where the liaison is a member of the local behavioral health board. And there are other local behavioral health boards where the liaison is not a member,
Right.
like ours. Ours, they're not a member,
Okay.
they're just a
Right.
liaison.
Yeah, and if they're a liaison, they can't vote, but they can do teleconferencing without any of these rules because they're not subject to the Brown Act.
Okay.
And we also don't have to worry about the quorum because they aren't part of it.
Right, they're not added to the quorum. Right.
Teresa, when Jonathan says liaison, he's referring to the actual elected official though.
Yeah, what I'm saying, Tony,
Oh, I see.
what I'm saying is number 7, tell me if I'm wrong, Teresa, doesn't apply to us because our members of the Board of Supervisors, namely Supervisors Villegas and Frerichs, are not members of our board. We're not set up that way.
Well, you
Whereas
have to be. I mean,
they-
you have to have
they-
one in
they
order
do.
to meet the requirement. You
Are they-
need to have them.
So are they then they're voting members.
Right.
Okay.
You only have to have one.
Okay.
I don't know if one's an alternate or something, but yeah, they need to be listed as members in order to meet the requirements of California law.
Okay. Thank you.
But it sounds like we might be better off only having one because otherwise our quorum is going to be a problem if they're not coming to the meetings.
Right. Yeah, that
So
can make it more difficult if they're not coming.
Well, and this would be a broader conversation of, including them in this information so that they understand that their presence is needed.
It's a very important board. They should come.
That's unanimously agreement here.
I will speak for my boss and say he agrees it's incredibly important. He had a conflict today, but
Okay.
I will be communicating with him.
Okay, thanks. All right, let me keep moving through this. Okay, this is a listing of the just cause allowances, childcare, illness, a need related to physical or mental condition that's not subject to disability allowances. So for the most part, a disability allowance will cover it completely, and you don't have to look at just cause if somebody has a disability, whether it's temporary or permanent. And then official travel for a state or a local agency. And then immunocompromised family member, physical or family medical emergency, and military service obligations. Okay, so we're getting into the frequently asked questions. The closed meetings information. Is it permissible to conduct closed meetings? That's what we were talking about earlier, and it looks like I don't have the listing in front of us, but let me pull it up on my screen.
Hey, Teresa, getting back to the last slide, and I may have missed this,
Yeah.
but if one of our members can appear remotely if they're out of the area, on work. And maybe that's changed because I don't think I saw that. It used to be, I thought that if you were out of the area because of work, not because of vacation, you could appear remotely.
Yeah, it's not on the list anymore if it was before, only if it's official business of your body, of your board or commission, or of a state or local agency.
Oh, maybe that was it then. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, let me pull up the Brown Act here, and we'll go to the Brown Act guide, which you may have a copy of that printed out. I think I sent a link to that. So I'll go to the frequently asked questions, and that talks to the closed meetings. Okay, let me zoom in just a second. All right, so sorry, I'm struggling a little bit with my Zoom. All right, so closed meetings are allowed for personnel issues, and let's see what it says. To discuss appointment, employment, performance evaluation, discipline, complaints about or dismissal of a specific employee or potential employee. The employee may request a public meeting on any charges or complaints. So the employee, it looks to me from this that if there is an issue for an employer or multiple employees, this could that you feel like needs to be heard by your full board, then it could be a closed meeting. But again, this is usually an advisory board doesn't get into this type of detail. When something comes before you and you hear that there is something that may be a systemic issue with the workforce, with the staff, then you need to look into that and make recommendations from what you've heard. But it's not really your role to be like in a supervisor capacity. That's where I could see the staff was concerned about that, and we don't want you getting involved with any personnel legal issues. We want you to be focused more on systemic issues related to behavioral health. Okay, I'll go back to the slides. Oops. Conference attendance, so you can have a quorum together outside of your behavioral health meetings, as long as you're not like sitting together talking about behavioral health. It's fine to go to other outside conferences together. If you don't have a quorum, it's okay by state law for you to meet. You can still meet even though you don't have a quorum. You can't vote. In some counties, the county staff doesn't, the executive office or the board of supervisors doesn't allow boards to meet if they're not, if they don't have a quorum. They have to just reschedule. But it's fine by state law. You can go ahead and meet, but you do need to make sure that you're abiding by the Brown Act.
Would you say most boards across the state cancel meetings if they know they don't have a quorum, or do they meet and just not conduct business?
I think probably the majority go ahead and meet, and they can have discussions, have their speakers, just they can't vote on their minutes. I mean, usually there's not a lot of votes during the meeting anyway. They can put it off to the next time. And that happens with standing committees too. And retreats are considered meetings, so they abide by the Brown Act, and then serial meetings. So I think I touched on that earlier. As long as it's the subject matter of your board, which is behavioral health, you should not have any kind of contacts that would constitute a quorum outside of your posted meetings. Okay, that's the end of my slides.
Question.
Yes.
If you have a Zoom meeting with board members that hits the quorum number, does that qualify as a quorum because you're not in person? So say the standing committee, the executive committee meets via Zoom to discuss the agenda. Are they creating a requirement to comply with the Brown Act?
Right. Yes, they are. Yeah.
They are.
Your
Maybe
executive committee, it sounds like you don't have you haven't been applying the Brown Act to the executive committee, but you need to start. So yeah, if it's going to be by teleconference, you'll need to first get your board to be approved by the Board of Supervisors to do teleconference meetings. And then you can go forward with future teleconferences with
But we have to
any of your
post.
stand. Yeah, you have to, you should be posting that. Yeah, sometimes I do hear about this happening in counties, but it is actually a standing committee, what's happening with your executive committee, so you should be posting and it
So
should
we
be
would be-
open to the public.
But if we're just meeting to set the agenda, I mean, it seems strange to have a public meeting to set the agenda for the public meeting.
That's most what usually executive committees do is they set the agenda, and then maybe there'll be some special issues that they might talk about. Like you said, sometimes it might be something that's come up between meetings that the staff wants to call your attention to.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you, so if we're putting together some kind of document, like the annual report or the bylaws or something like that, is the only way to get feedback from other board members on that document, does that have to happen within the public meeting, or is there any way to collect feedback?
Right. Yeah, you can meet, it as long as you don't have a quorum, you can
No, but I'm
have
saying, if you
individuals.
want to open it up to the full board and say, oh, I want your input on this document, can they email us or put it into a Google form or something like that? Or does it have to be at the meeting?
Right. Yeah, I think a better way to do it, because we don't want a majority having a discussion outside of a meeting. But usually it's one or two people that'll roll up their sleeves and do an annual report, right? So they create it and then put it in front of the board or commission at one of their meetings, and ask, are there changes that you want, make it part of the meeting materials. And then, if it's ready and people don't have comments, then you can approve it and send it on to the Board of Supervisors. But if it's not, then, wait till your next meeting for approval, get that input publicly and let the public, and provide input if they want.
Okay, so there's no way to collect edits between meetings. It has to be done at the meeting.
Right. It's better not to. It's not a good practice to have any kind of discussion or emails and things on a topic if it's going to hit a quorum.
Do any other board members have? Okay, I'm going to open it up. I missed, and did not do the public comment that I was supposed to do earlier. So first, we're going to give the public a chance to ask you questions, Teresa, and then we'll do the real public comment. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for this information, Teresa.
Oh,
We
you're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now opening it up for the real public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to do public comment?
I have a comment that is public. Good evening. I don't know if you guys remember me, Preston Shaw. I'm the supervising deputy DA over at the Illinois office, who's overseeing our collaborative courts and our restorative justice partnership and all of our diversion programs. Thought it'd be a good idea to come in and kind of give a quick little update on the collaborative courts and what's been going on over the last year since we last spoke. Mental health court is again up and running. We are officially admitting new people to mental health court. We got our first new participant start just on January 5th. Our total number now is up then to 18 out of 30 slots. So we have plenty of openings in mental health court, and we have a lot of active referrals that we're going through right now. So those spots will start to fill up pretty quickly. Our addiction intervention court is winding down due to our new Top 36 drug courts coming into place. We right now have 7 people in that program. Someone is likely to be discharged here soon. That will take us down to 6. Ideally, in the long term, I think that program is going to be phased out and replaced with a different drug-focused program. We also have our Department of State Hospital program, which serves our population who are found incompetent to stand trial. They are currently at 8 out of a maximum of 10 participants. We have 2 openings in that program that we're actively looking for appropriate candidates for. And other than that, we had our recent graduation on January 5th. that went really well. And we do not have any graduations currently scheduled. I'm guessing probably in the next couple of months, we'll have some new participants getting ready to graduate, but as of right now, nothing on the books. That's sort of the big 30,000-foot view of what's going on in those programs. If you guys have any questions, let me know. So that's it. Nothing outside or later, wherever you want, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, does anybody online have any public comment? I should give the public an opportunity. Oh, we haven't seen the mental health director's report though.
It'll be a verbal report this time.
Oh, so there's nothing that we can call out from the mental health director's report.
Well, I can identify topics, the topics we discussed, and if there's anything in particular you want to know about what's going on. I know that we were having this presentation tonight and I had a pretty narrow window for the report, so let's try to get it later. But we're way ahead of schedule this time. So what I was prepared to talk about is what we're currently doing. Are we ready for me to go into this? What I was prepared to talk about tonight is where we're at with the development of the Behavioral Health Services Act and integrated plan. And so we're still moving forward with the timeline that has been established for us to submit the draft plan to the state on March 31st. Where it's going to be a lot of work to get it done in the next 3 months. We're planning to present to the board in January to provide just kind of an overview of the Behavioral Health Services Act, provide the board members with some context about where we're at, or I'm sorry, provide some context about how the Behavioral Health Services Act works, and provide some local examples of some issues that we're trying to kind of rank all, right? And so one of the examples is around using the 30% of the funding for housing, 35% for FSP, and 35% for behavioral health services and supports. And in behavioral health services and supports, 51% of the funding needs to be used for early intervention. And so our allocation, the way it breaks out currently, that's about $6.8 million for behavioral health services and supports. But we have expenses that we're crosswalking over from MHSA from like services that we provide that meet the criteria for the behavioral health services and supports that are about $4.8 million, right? So we would need to either come up with $4.8 million of early intervention programming, right? Or reduce those existing costs down to $3.4 million, so then we could stay within the $6.8 million allocation that we have, right? So those we're not necessarily planning in January to explain exactly what we're trying to do, but just to try to give the board and the public some information about, okay, these are some of the challenges that are coming up that we're trying to work through. The idea is for us to go to the board in February to provide a comprehensive presentation about what we're recommending, right? And what the plan should look like. And then we need to submit the draft plan in March. So a lot of the work that we've been doing over the holidays really has been around getting the budget crosswalked over from the MHSA to BHSO and starting to figure out what areas we need to address in terms of the plan. Like, for example, there's some specific requirements that are going into effect for us to provide certain evidence-based practices like ACT, FNCT, right? There's a few different areas that we're going to need to do some RFPs for. And so we're pulling all that together now. Any questions about that?
You said you're going to be presenting to the board of supervisors. Which meeting in January?
January 27th. Okay, the other thing, the other topic that I was, wanting to discuss tonight is around budgets in general, right? So we are, we're looking at, the fiscal year 26-27 budget. We're putting together the Behavioral Health Services Act plan for the next 3 years, right? But we're also looking at just our regular county budget for the 26-27 fiscal year. And we're already identifying some potential challenges with realignment funding, which will likely call for us to make some reductions. So we're working as an agency to establish priorities for which programs need to be prioritized. And because the realignment funding has some flexibility, right? We can move some of the funding around. And we're anticipating a potential need to reduce expenses in behavioral health by about $1.6 million in fiscal year 26-27. So I'm looking right now at areas where we're currently using realignment funding to support programming and try to make some decisions. We're going to be trying to make some decisions about making recommendations to reduce some of that funding. Additionally, we're also being asked to reduce Kenya County General Fund contribution by 10%. And so we're also looking at those areas in our budget where we have general fund contributions. It's a little tricky with the behavioral health part because there are some areas where there's like a maintenance of capital requirement where we wouldn't be able to reduce expenses below a certain point, but we're exploring that right now.
Is the total amount of the realignment funding going down the county's receiving?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. We're anticipating a reduction in revenues for realignment.
How big a reduction?
I can't speak. I don't have the figures like on me, but I know that the total that we're looking at in behavioral health is between 1.4 to 1.6 million dollars of reductions in 1991 and 2011.
So the 10% cut to the general fund spending, is that because it's an across the board for the county? Every department is cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any room there to argue that you're getting cut in these other ways? And maybe it's not really fair to an equal cut.
So I can't speak to that. I mean, I can't speak to what is happening across the county. I just know that in our department, we're being asked to put together a budget that would consider a 10% budget or the 10% reduction in general fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
What percentage of your budget is general fund? Ballpark?
Very minor. I mean, I know that just for the whole agency, right? I mean, the agency budget is hundreds of millions of dollars, and the general fund contribution is like 17 million, right? So it's not a significant part of the budget. What makes it complicated is the way that the agency is structured and the way that the branches were set up before recently. You have the adult and aging branch, so you have adult behavioral health, APS, veteran services, you have public guardian, public authority, and IHSS. And on the behavioral health side, the amount of general fund contribution is there's not very much general fund contribution, but public guardian is fully funded by general fund, right? So they account for almost half of the general fund contribution. So what we're looking at is making a general fund reduction by branch, right? And so then what complicates is that I don't know that public guardian could take a 10% reduction, right? It would be a 10% reduction of total services because that's their only funding source, right? Or in other areas of the branch, like in behavioral health, there's multiple funding streams to consider, right? So it may need to be more than a 10% reduction in other areas of the branch
Mhm.
to account for that.
But you're reorganizing the branches right now.
We are reorganizing the branches, but we're still in the same branch structure for the purposes of the next fiscal year's budget. Just because there was not time to reorganize that fiscally just yet. So the new kind of branch structure budget probably won't go into effect until like 27, 28.
And that's a sure thing now that you're definitely reorganizing.
We are definitely reorganizing, yeah. So the new branch will be called the Behavioral Health and Veteran Services Branch.
How much of the veteran services is general fund?
100%, I believe.
Okay, so you don't get subvention funding from the state, this CalVet program?
I'm not completely familiar with the Veteran Services budget because it just came to me.
Okay.
But, yeah, like, so I'm not 100% up to speed, but I was under the impression that 100% of their budget was general fund, but there may be something to what you're saying.
Okay, I'll chat with you offline.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Yeah.
I could try to better understand that office. One of the gaps for veterans, especially ones that were seriously mentally ill, is a lack of a case manager for FSP level veterans. Because they get that they're disabled or they're not gonna be eligible for Medi-Cal, but they don't have that assistance. The VA here's the door, the veteran has to get through the door, or quite often they need case manager assistance to get into the door. So I was trying to better understand that office.
I mean, the Veteran Services Program doesn't have like a really big footprint in terms of staffing, right? I mean, we have like 2.5 FTE, so, again, like, I do believe that it's funded primarily by general fund. And again, that's another area where I would be reluctant to impose a 10% reduction on a program that only has one funding source, right? So those are some of the things we're looking at. So I mean, I think that the bigger takeaway is that we're, continuing to experience some fiscal challenges, and we're working through navigating on them. And I'll give you guys an update at the next month's meeting when I have a little bit better picture about where we're at with that. SB 43 went into effect January 1.
How's that going?
So far, so good. I mean, we're not, we're about as prepared as we think we can be, right? We're just waiting to see kind of what happens with the local implementation, right? So to the best of my knowledge, it's only been a week, right? We met about it earlier today. We're not aware of anyone yet being kind of identified as being someone who has been put on a hold specific to that criteria. But we're going to be monitoring. We have a group that has been meeting every couple of weeks just to get ready for the implementation, and we're going to scale back really that quickly because we think we're ready for it now, but then we can get back together if we think we need to. So, we're hoping. I'm hoping that we're ready, right? And it's just going to be a matter of time, I think, before we end up in some situations where we have some individuals that are getting identified under that criteria. In Crisis Receiving Center, we are still moving forward with trying to establish the wall space contract. We're having like a little bit of checkup with one of our funding sources that we're trying to navigate through. We have the BSCC skip grant, and we had identified the funding to be used with our existing contractor, which wasn't a problem, but they can't do it. And so in establishing the contract with wall space, there's an issue that's coming up around us using a sole source for that. And so we're trying to work through that with the grant funder to make sure that, but The intent is for us to get this before the board to authorize the contract and for services to start on February 1. Assuming that we can work out the bugs with the grant funder, we'd like to push the pilot out beyond 12 months to it would be 17 months, right? Because essentially it would be February to February, which is kind of the place to end the pilot, right? You know, so we would want to try to go to February round to the next June, right? So that, you know, at that point we can make some decisions about what to do in the next fiscal year. So we believe that assuming that we can work this situation out with the grant funder, we believe we'll have adequate funding to get to June of 2027 without an issue. Those are the big updates that I have.
What you said about the sole source reminded me that we haven't done anything lately about that data system that was being held up.
Oh,
The sole source issue.
yeah. The SmartCare electronic health record system. Okay, so as you all remember, we needed to come up with an innovations plan or be at risk of reverting the funds. I think you guys recall the conversation around that, but just the short version was that we needed to come up with an innovation plan very quickly. We did not have time to develop a full-fledged innovations plan. We recommended to opt into CalMesa's existing innovations plan, which is this SmartCare electronic health record system. This body recommended it, the board approved it, but there was something that came up around whether or not we had whether or not we had done a valid procurement, right? You know, or if there was something that we need to do. So there was some internal, I want to say investigation. It was like basically like something like, you know, like review. I mean, there was some internal review about what the process was about making that decision and what we should or could do. And the decision was made to release an RFI to solicit information from other vendors of electronic health record systems to see kind of what was out there. And those responses were evaluated, and there was a determination that SmartCare was like a competitive vendor, right? And so we're being given permission to now move forward with developing the contract, right? So I just received a draft sole source document for that contract today that I still need to review, and we're about to start moving through the process of developing the contract with the vendor. What that would involve is be like a multi-year implementation, right? Where we would have, you know, the new electronic health record and the old electronic health record kind of simultaneously for a while as we kind of migrated over to the new system. So it is now moving forward again. Yeah. And I believe that, you know, and I'll be transparent, right? You know, that there are definitely some people who are critical of that system that are out there, right? But I was on a call recently with another county, like we have been contacting multiple counties recently, and trying to get a better idea about how they do Medi-Cal billing and kind of what we could learn from other counties. And this other county, who shall remain nameless, was all praise about SmartCare and about how utilizing SmartCare and the like a billing kind of add-on, right? Had like drastically increased the amount of revenue that they were receiving, and it had also created opportunities for them to do other kinds of billing that they were doing before, like billing to like private vendors or private insurers and stuff like that. So it just spoke very highly of it. And especially from the lens of an administrator in terms of gathering data and collecting information about how the system is functioning, right? And so I'm very optimistic that once we can get it here and get migrated over to it, that it'll be this infrastructure framework that we can build sort of like a whole local systems change around, right? This local system, it is in need of some change, right? Some pretty significant change and like some modernization. And I'm hopeful that that will be sort of like this catalyst and this kind of like again, like framework to sort of build some of the changes around. Like, I think there's some structural changes that need to happen, and there's just some different business practices that need to happen to get this system to where it needs to be. And I think this is really going to be, I'm very hopeful that this will be the first step.
Is any smart, they're with Cal Mesa?
How many say? Yeah.
And did you do a sole source the first time around?
We didn't do, so Cal Mesa is a joint powers authority, so it really isn't necessary to do a sole source or a competitive process, right? So, I mean, that's my understanding of it at least, right? And so the RFI process from my perspective is more out of an abundance of caution and making sure that we're considering all different opportunities that are out there. Now, the challenge here really is that the innovations funds can't just be used for any EHR, right? It's like we couldn't just say, oh, well, this is a better electronic health record out here. We'll just use the innovations funds for that. That's not the way it works, right? The approved plan is Cal Mesa's plan. They're the ones with the approved plan. And we're just opting into it. We're using our innovations funds to opt into their approved plan. So, those were the questions that were coming up though. Like, wait, how did you make a decision to pick this one? Right? Like, how did you make a decision to pick and did you do a sole source or should you have done an RFP? Right?
Well, I think it's really smart what you're doing just because, I mean, from what I've heard, the Smart Care is a good system, but the challenge in terms of the appearance of impropriety is you have your former director of Health and Human Services and her assistant both working there. So just it's cleaner to do what you're doing. So that makes sense.
So that was the other element. Yes. And, to Carlene and Samantha's, credit, I mean, I can tell you that it was ethical and above board, right? But they're not like, their area of what they do is not committed to the EHR. But yes, to your point, there was also this other unfortunate coincidence, around where our former behavioral health director and the adult aging branch director went to work right after they left here.
So how soon should this start paying off?
I mean, it'll probably be years. I mean, to be honest with you, right? It'll take a while. I mean, system migration is really difficult, right? You have staff that have to be trained, and then there's. But the good thing is that I forget the name of the vendor who does the Smart Care system. They've already worked with other net smart counties. Right, and so they should have a pretty good idea of which data fields go over to where, right? So, but from my perspective at least, there's multiple positives, right? It'll allow us to compare, like, and this is what the other county was telling us, like they can compare their performance to other counties' Smart Care system, right? They can they can get a better idea about like, hey, we're doing good at this, or we're not doing well in this, but you are. Like, and they pick up the phone and like, what are you guys doing, right? You know, so there's stuff like that. And the other thing is that because it's becoming more ubiquitous in California, a lot of the vendors are working with counties that contract with Smart Care, and so the vendors are learning how to use that system. And it's the same system from county to county, right? With NetSmart, we have like a Yolo County implementation. Sacramento County had Avatar, right? NetSmart, but theirs was unique to Sacramento, right? Where Smart Care is the same wherever you go, right? It's just that's the whole point of it. And so any vendors that we contract with in the future are likely to, or it's probable that they will have already had experience working in that system, right? And so as it becomes more and more ubiquitous, like it's going to make it easier for us to onboard contractors and stuff like that. So I think there's like multiple areas where there's potential for this to be a good thing, right? But
all of them will take several years.
I think it will take a while, right? But I don't know. I mean, definitely, you know, once we get a contract going and we start getting things moving forward, I mean, my best guess, I mean, I'm not an IT person, right? But just kind of having gone through something similar in a past life, I mean, at least a year, right? Yeah.
All right, when you said
Yeah.
years, I was thinking years.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just changing an electronic health record, right? I mean, it's like this system change that really needs to happen, right? So it's like we don't need to just change an electronic health record. We also need to like modernize our billing practices, right? We need to. There's some different things that we need to do structurally as an agency.
It's a whole infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that I would think it will take a couple of years. You know, that's my best estimate. Thank you for the reminder, though.
That's totally
That was
because
kind
in
of-
a different
that was kind of
direction.
tricky.
All right. Nothing else? Nothing else?
Nothing else?
Any questions? Ad hoc committee reports. So Luca is not here. Can anybody else speak to the site visit ad hoc committee?
I've had no communication with her, so I have no information.
Yeah, I have.
She did send an email like a few minutes ago. She's stuck in traffic, comes from the Bay Area.
Oh.
She said she'd be at the next meeting, but I
Oh,
think
she
virtually
Oh.
say goodbye. That she said she's sorry that she's stuck in traffic.
All right. Kimberly.
Annual report, the annual report ad hoc committee met, was it a couple times, once? But anyway, we've been plugging away at the annual report. We have a working draft. We anticipate having it ready by next meeting for board review and approval. So
Nice.
that's kind of where we're at.
That's awesome.
Speaking of the annual report, there has been a board agenda item that has just kind of been getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And at some point, there was supposed to be a board presentation, right? About it. And so I had
This board presentation?
no, the
This
board of
was
supervisors to
presented
present this board presenting to the board of
Yeah,
supervisors, right?
This board, not your.
And so when do you anticipate that we would be ready?
It depends if we can pass it at the next meeting.
So February,
Late February.
late February,
Last thing in February.
tentatively.
So just in terms of the sequence, right? Does this board approve the report and then it gets provided to?
Yes.
Okay. All right, okay.
So if
So if we can
everybody
approve it,
approves
let's
the
just-
report
yeah.
at the next meeting.
I think we can.
Okay. All right.
You might say April would be safe. No, just because
You've been scarred by the bylaws.
Yeah, March.
February, then something has to be changed,
March
and you put it on March.
Well, but there's a meeting after.
There is, but
Yeah,
April just sounds safe.
So we have a,
Well,
Maybe late March.
April 2028.
but what was
Like-
the, and now I'm having brain freeze on, we had spoken to members of the board, supervisors or their deputies, and they told us the ideal time to present these. We're probably past that, but in future, maybe we can get their, does anyone remember what? So that they could,
I thought we were trying to present it in January, weren't we?
or we,
Oh, Christine's nodding. That's
January, so then we're not, that's.
So the possible could be February if we approve it, because we're the first week of February. There's probably two
Right.
board meetings.
I think we
At least
should.
one.
Think positively.
Just scarred by the
I don't know.
bylaws experience.
which is it covering the calendar year or the fiscal year?
Fiscal year, but sorry, fiscal year, but there are some things from the end of the calendar year that are included.
Because it felt weird not to. reveal them.
I did.
It's like a, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's about it. So are you technically also part of the ad hoc committee? What's I forgot.
Yes, you are.
Okay, you are.
I missed the couple
Like-
meetings. I missed a couple meetings.
I mean, okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll forward that.
Okay. So, public comment. Anyone in the, no, okay. Anyone online? Okay. Future meeting planning and adjournment? Do we need to do any planning or?
Well, I want to bring something up. Should we have a discussion, and now we have some time on that, we're probably all excited to get out of here, but about, do we want to ask the board, and I don't even know how, they probably don't even know what they're doing yet in terms of the Brown Act, but would we want to ask the board for approval to have the, the remote appearance capability under the new Brown Act law?
Yeah, do we need to do that formally or can we just ask Emily to?
I would bet that Bill would probably say we're still trying to figure that out, our
Oh.
council, because it's so new.
Okay.
So I think someone should, maybe you or Meg, or if you want me to, should ask Phil, we are interested in the Brown Act, whatever you want to call it, exception or new, for remote appearances. How do we start that process to get the board to approve it, to allow us then at a meeting to approve it officially? Does everyone agree that we should move in that direction? Does anyone disagree?
I have concerns, but I'd just like to see. It's either to open up a whole lot of remote appearances
Yeah.
as opposed to meeting in person. I think there's value in meeting in person.
Yeah.
So I just
That's a good point.
see that value. I think they did with the modification, for example, someone's sick, they can participate a couple times a year remotely so that we have that flexibility.
And who knows, the board may have that opinion too and may not approve it.
I think it's valuable to get the inquiry and see if, then we have to vote to approve it, and the majority may vote that way.
I guess
Do
what
we
I
have
was,
to
what I,
vote for it, or do
yeah, we have
just
to approve
vote
it. They approve it and then we approve it.
for it? Oh,
But I guess what I want to do is, there's no sense in, if we know that we're not interested, then there's no sense in going to the board to ask for that.
I think there's some interest. Some people aren't here, some people aren't officially members yet. But I think it's valuable to get that inquiry about process. And then if we need to do a formal request, I guess we could vote, but
If I remember correctly from the presentation. in this-
Can I say something? I'm sorry. I'm not clear. Are we asking are we asking the board if we could have the ability to have virtual meetings once or twice a year? Is that what the?
Not virtual meetings, but the new Brown Act, Nikki, the new amendments to the Brown Act says that you no longer need this just cause or for cause, whatever it is, exception like you have today, like you would have today.
Oh, right.
To be participate, like you could be a participate like public member, which is, I think, probably what Moises is doing today. But
He got approved.
oh, he got approval. I'm sorry, Moises. But without approval, but now under the new law, you would not need that approval. So you would be able to do it. It's kind of extending the ability without having to have this just cause ability for members to participate and be remote. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just don't think, I mean, I think we ought to try it out and see. I don't recall anybody who's kind of tried to abuse this in the past. And so it would make sense to me for a person to decide based on either how they're feeling or whether it's raining cats and dogs and they don't really want to be out on the road. There are occasions in which I think it would be safer for some people to not be able to not necessarily have an approval for just cause.
I guess the fear or concern that Chris is expressing, which other people are talking about too, is, you know, that we end up having meetings where there's like only 3 people that come to our meetings in person. That's the kind of concern.
I understand that, but if we had ended up with a particular meeting where only 3 people were coming in person, then I think we'd have, and it wasn't raining cats and dogs or something like that. I think we'd have another set of issues we need to deal with.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that people know, you know, like I kind of knew today that you didn't need me coughing and blowing all over you. And then to call Meg was at home sick herself. So to me, it's just, it just kind of makes it cumbersome. We're all adults. We've made a commitment to participate. When it becomes impossible to participate, then I think we need to rethink our commitment to being on the board. I mean, that's the real issue. If, you know, I agree with Chris that there's value in meeting, and I think most of us are committed to that value. But to say we have to go through a gigantic process in order to say, you know, look, I've got a migraine headache or I've got a cold or whatever is, I just think it, I
I think you muted yourself.
I don't think it gives people the credit that we deserve for being on the board. So that's all I'm saying. I mean, I guess somebody's going to have to tell Lucas or Sheila that they have to be here in person. I'm not going to do that. And I'm willing to let anybody else do it. But I know how I feel. And most of the times I feel like coming to the meeting. Today I didn't.
Is this the sort of thing where if we try it out and then we decide it's not working, we can vote to not do it anymore?
I think we could.
Well, what I was gonna ask you about is,
Doesn't it say they have to renew it every 6 months?
Oh, yeah.
that's it, then they have to
So,
renew it
like,
every 6 months.
Do a 6-month trial.
Yeah, it does say that.
Okay, so 6 months trial, because we're going to vote on this.
Well, since we didn't vote on it until after.
Yeah.
Until after they- yeah.
We're kind of nodding consensus, and someone needs to talk to the council about process.
When we might feel better, we can do it.
Okay.
Okay, it sounds like we can adjourn then, yes.
You're
Adjourn if there's still stuff.
Do the bylaws? We're adjourned. I'm just-
Oh, we are adjourned.
We're-
Okay.
yeah, no, no.
Adjourned.
No, I just wanted to ask you a question, but do our bylaws state, because I remember reading somewhere that you could set your board up so the board of supervisor member is an official member or is
I
not.
need to look at it, but I don't think we set it up that way in the bylaws, which is why I mentioned we made the amendment bylaws.
Because I thought our bylaws were pretty strictly based on the
Yeah,
statute.
I'd have to look at it again.
I don't remember anything about that. We were both working on the bylaws.
Anything about,
I don't remember anything about it saying that it could either be a liaison or a member.
but does it say, do you remember if the bylaws say our board of supervisors member is not an official voting member? Does it say that?
I think that's who the voting members are.
Mhm.
I don't believe it's the board of supervisors are listed on that, but that's my recollection, and I'm getting older.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at it to be
Yeah.
sure.
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Is that under membership?
Yeah,
They're on the website.
Okay.
So we can look at it too. Will somebody follow up with us or me, just so that I can give the correct information to Supervisor Frericks?
Sure, yeah.
Thanks.
What section?
It lists all the members, like, you get the veteran member, you have consumers, education was added to. It has a 15th version.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Because you can still get out of this.
I already met with Maria. I sat down and had like a long conversation with her about what this does or might not. So, but I
You just stick with it. Okay, cool, thank you.
So it was, yes, it was thought about with the election.
Okay.
Congrats on your new hobby.
I think, yes.
Doesn't really say anything
It's
about it.
not related to
Oh,
the
okay.
criminal board, but I just wanted to check with you.
We kind of mimicked
it's
the
already up,
statute.
but-
Yeah.
We did that.
If I need to
and
cancel.
The county
For their-
statute of 1993 hasn't been updated to reflect the state law. At least that we could find.
We have SACE, SACE billing.
Just like something.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is just that I have to have your approval before I can
Yeah.
push it
Yeah.
to
LEU.
Oh, no, that's Mary.
Call a meeting, 10 minutes. and then-
Oh, yeah. Who do you know, who's your rep?
like.
That's the-
Yeah.
That's
Contact.
I didn't realize you were saying.
Valerie.
And it's quarterly too.
Taylor and,
Yeah,
I mean, you know.
and general fund. Every day. I know, I'm hearing every day because they. Yeah.
Yeah.
Overtime too.
It says there's only one
Hi, Tony.
member of the
Like-
board.
Hi, Tony.
Christy. I did not forget about you.
Okay, good.
So I will call you tomorrow, I promise.
Okay. Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
You started.
Hi.
The meeting adjourned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All our
Thank you.
See ya.
Going.
It says 16